Definitely stay consistent with what you're doing, but also understand why you're doing it. I think it's really important for every wholesaler, whether you're new, experienced, or you're just getting into it, or even if you've been doing this for years and you haven't really set up an ultimate vision for your company.
Today we've got Darion Blake from Dallas-Fort Worth. Darion does about $175,000 a month in his real estate wholesaling business.
In this business, man, like trying to do these things all yourself is fucking exhausting. And when you're trying to wear too many hats, it just makes it very difficult to do.
Today we're going to be talking about the different lead channels that he does and how he's been able to scale his business to $175,000 a month. Welcome to the Zeroed In Podcast. I'm your host, John Lallande, a seasoned real estate investment expert and former Marine recon sniper. This podcast is designed for those seeking effective strategies to increase revenue growth through strategic hiring, leadership, and effective tracking. Our focus here is clear and direct. We provide actionable insights from successful founders and growth experts. Whether you're establishing a new business or aiming to scale an existing one, our episodes offer the essential advice you need for practical business growth. Lock and load, zero in, and get ready to scale. Welcome to the Zeroed In Podcast. Today we've got Darion Blake from Dallas-Fort Worth. Darion does about $175,000 a month in his real estate wholesaling business. And today we're going to be talking about the different lead channels that he does and how he's been able to scale his business to $175,000 a month. So Darion, thanks for coming on, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your business, just like you were just explaining me, and how you actually got to this business model? Because it doesn't sound like you just picked one, channel of going direct to seller. You're doing a little bit of everything. So tell us a little bit about how you got there.
Sweet, man. So firstly, thank you for having me, bro. I really do appreciate it and connecting. To just kind of dive into it, we really focus on pretty much every lead source that you can think of. So direct to seller, direct to wholesale, and direct to agent as well. Within each lead source, we really dive in heavy on the inbound, creating inbound channels. And when it comes to direct to seller, we do Facebook ads, PPC, PPL, mailing campaigns, and then also bandit signs as well. But when we're doing our campaigns, man, I'm a big believer in quality over quantity. And so the best way to hit a target is if you can actively see the target. And so the analogy I like to use is if you set a target up 75 yards away, do you want to shoot at it with a shotgun or, do you want to take it with a rifle? It's a lot better if you take it with a rifle. And so what we do is what's called geofencing. And this kind of allows us to take that approach in our marketing campaigns. So what I teach my students to do is essentially use a platform called ListSource. And ListSource does two things. It shows you what the hottest zip codes are in your market, and it also helps you build a buyer's list as well. So this in turn is going to show you where most investors are essentially, the zip codes that they're really seeking. And that's where we want to apply a lot of our focus, and that needs to be our central focal point for our marketing campaigns. Because at the end of the day, it's telling me two things. One, I know if this zip code is the hottest zip code, then I know if I get a lead in this zip code, one, I'm going to have a higher probability of converting that lead to an actual deal because most sellers are selling in this area based off of historical data for the last 12 months. So I know I'm going to have a higher chance of converting the lead. But I also know I'm going to have a higher chance of moving a deal as well. So at the end of the day, you can take the shotgun approach and blast all over your market for sure and get hundreds of leads in, contract 100 properties, but if you don't sell one of them, it doesn't mean anything. And so that's kind of the, philosophy and the approach that we take. So we really create a parameter around these particular zip codes based off of the activity in them. And so usually when I run my list source, I want to find a zip code that has the most cash transactions in the last 12 months. And when I do that, man, I'm able to really kind of narrow down where I need to be at and where I need to focus my attention to. And that's what allows me and really my team to create a lot more quality over quantity. And so when we have leads coming in, they're more quality leads, and we're usually able to do a higher amount of volume when we actually close these deals. So that's kind of the approach that we take.
I love that methodology. We just switched to doing more of that. We've always liked to just stay in, markets where they don't have a lot of rural areas. There's a lot of investor activity. We're in SoCal, right? So it's one of the most competitive markets, and there's a lot of investor activity in most of the counties, right? We even got more granular this year when we started targeting with YouTube and search. We just started targeting all the cities that we want. And obviously on Google, you can't target by zip code, but we can target by cities. And what we've noticed is our average cost per deal has gone up tremendously, and we are converting at a higher rate. So we're having our contract to close is going higher and everything like that. So I love that you're doing that. Explain to me, you're doing PPL as well. How are you actually targeting these areas with your campaigns?
So we use Need to Sell My House Fast, which is basically like, and I wouldn't say an idea, but it was pretty much not given to us, but like recommended to us from Tiffany and Josh. So we use the same people that they use essentially. But when it comes to PP like L, it's not necessarily like super targeted into these particular zip codes. You can if you use like high speed to lead, which is like a big one that's I think advocated by RJ Bates. They're pretty good too, man. And that'll have you like when you're doing high speed to lead, you have the ability to really look at the particular zip codes you want to target. So that's a really great way to really do PPO on that end. But for the most part, like I Need to Sell My House Fast, they'll just collect the data and just send it over to you based off of like how your profile is essentially set up.
Correct. Yeah. And what about the other channels? How are you targeting zip codes with those other channels?
Yeah, man. So Facebook ads, I set up like Facebook ad accounts myself.
Okay.
Low-key a nerd. So I'm super familiar with like how to do that within the Facebook or within Facebook's ad account settings. So that helps out a lot, man. With PPC, it's a little bit harder. It is a little bit harder. And I'm not the guy to talk to about PPC because I'm not a wizard like that. Like PPC is extremely complex. And then when it comes to bandit signs and mailers, that's cake. Like that is super easy.
Yeah, you just go and drop it where you want to drop it.
Yeah, 100%, man. And that's funny too, dude, because like that's what I teach a lot of my mentees. Like I always assign them like homework because it's like it makes no sense for me to teach them what I know and them not take action. So I'm like, look, take your ass to Walmart, buy some cardboard boxes and a fat Sharpie marker with some zip ties, set up like a third-party number, create a little bandit sign, and later in the evenings just go post them out in the hot zip codes you're in and just leave them out there. Do that like once a month. And they create inbound leads from that. And it helps out, man, because like it's really unique. And here's how I mean. So I'm basically, I have the ability to essentially put bandit signs out, do door knocking, and driving for dollars without actually doing any of that through my mentees. So when they're actively doing these things and they're getting contracts or they're getting interest or they're getting leads, that's when I kind of like step into play and help them get the property under contract. I help them with the sales negotiations, the underwriting, the contract, and then just essentially bring a buyer to the table and we close on it. So I do that quite a bit, man. It's like free market.
And your community is all in Dallas-Fort Worth? Or are they nationwide?
Mainly in Dallas-Fort Worth. I've got a lot of people, or I don't say a lot, but I've got several people that are in different states. And I talk to people all the time, all over the nation. But for the most part, like a lot of my mentees are here in DFW.
And so what percentage of your deals are coming from your inbound channels like PPC, Facebook, Google versus the partner deals?
I'd say about 65% are coming from
65%. So you're like 65% are coming from your inbound, your PPL channels. And then you've also got people that you're helping teach how to do these things. I haven't heard of bandit signs in a while. What does that look like as far as, let's say you go put a bandit sign. What are you looking for? Where do you place the bandit signs? And then how many calls can you expect from each bandit sign?
Man, that's really good. So what I would recommend doing is when you figure out like what zip code is the absolute hottest, here in Texas, you've got second best to the MLS, you've got Podio. I'm sorry, not Podio, but Propellio. Propellio is a phenomenal tool when it comes to analyzing deals and really just having comp data. So what you're able to do both on the MLS and on Propellio is you can figure out where you could see like the cash transactions. So when you narrow in onto your specific zip code, and you look back at the cash transactions over the past 12 months in that zip code, look at the most grouping in that particular zip code, because that's going to show you what subdivision you need to be targeting the most and you need to be farming. So when you figure out what subdivision to go to, that's the subdivision that you want to go into and really post your bandit signs on like these stop signs, because you're going to have a higher probability of actually getting a lead that's going to convert. And as far as like call intake goes, I wouldn't say it's sporadic, but it really does depend. And it depends on the subdivision and also really the zip code itself. Because here in DFW, man, you've got 75216 and 75149. Those are the top 2 zip codes here. But they all have like for 75149 is Mesquite. And so you've got a major highway that runs up Mesquite that really kind of divides it. So you've got one subdivision that's on this side of the highway and you got a whole massive side over here. And so it really kind of depends on the subs that you're really tackling. So for example, what I recommend doing if you really want to break it down is look at the year builds. Look at the year builds of the properties. In 75216, you're going to have a lot of 1920 to a lot of 1950 builds. And this is great because a lot of the people in these homes or who own these houses are seniors. And these are people that are ready to pretty much just like sell the house, move on, leave it to an heir, do whatever, but they're pretty much done with the property. And that is a really great targeted area because now you can go pretty much like, it's very cookie cutter. 75216 is very cookie cutter. And so you can literally go in zigzags around the block, the entire zip code, and just post your signs on those stop signs. And you're creating essentially like a ladder of your post, which is great. And when you do that, and then you implement, let's say like your mailing campaign, they're going to see a lot more. You're going to become a lot more familiar in that area because you're planting little seeds subconsciously in their mind. So when they are getting ready to sell and you're hitting them with your marketing campaigns, you're the guy that they're going to think of because they see your stuff so often. And when you're able
you're actually able to focus on branding because it's hard to create a brand as a wholesale company when you're in a market like Dallas, Fort Worth, or any Tampa, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, any of the big markets, right? It's really hard because there's so many people. So you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to create a brand, unless this is an interesting thing that you're bringing up. You go that niche. And so you're only creating a brand around a couple of zip codes. So everyone knows you in those zip codes. Maybe no one knows you in the other zip codes, but who cares? That's not where you want to be known. Yeah. You're able to brand in those zip codes. I like that a lot. Now, are you testing different types of bandit signs, or are you just running cardboard box with a Sharpie and that's like those are the bandit signs that work?
Man, it's funny you asked that because I've actually had more responses with the cardboard boxes. Like, I really have.
And what do they say?
And so I think it's just more of like a personal kind of approach. It's so weird, dude. It really is. But I've had a lot more success with the cardboard boxes than I have with like these formal, fancy, nice put together signs.
What do they say? The cardboard boxes.
I buy houses cash, and some of them are kind of funny. Like it'll be like I buy houses cash with like a sad face. Some of them will be like the happy face, dollar signs, like little emojis basically on these little signs, man, that really kind of make it pop out. But it's real simple. It's I buy houses cash, have a problem house or have a problem property, don't like your ugly house. Like there's a lot of different creative ways you can do it. And I would say the more creative you can get with it, the more responses you're going to get in turn.
Interesting. Now you mentioned that on iSpeed to Lead, I'll actually drop, if you guys are listening to this, I'll drop a link for iSpeed to Lead. We use them. They're actually our top performing pay-per-lead channel as well. But you mentioned that you can target by zip codes or cities or just the counties. What can you do there?
Really all three, man. So, and it's not bad. Like iSpeed to Lead, I haven't used them in a while because we're using Need to Sell My House Fast. But last time I was on it, which was maybe about a year and a half ago, you're able to really see all three of them. And so when you have your account set up, and you're able to really kind of pick and select the people or the leads that you want to go off of. And when you do that, it shows you kind of where they're at. And it'll also kind of show, last time I was seeing it, it was on a map as well. And so when you understand your market, when you understand your area, when you can see where it's at on a map, you're going to know what area and what zip code it's in inevitably. It's just a matter of understanding your market.
So you're talking about when you go in to buy them a la carte, you can see the actual zip codes. If you set up the fixed price mode, you can't. I know you can just do by county, but yeah, if you're just selecting one at a time, that's really cool because then okay, I can pay more than anybody else for a lead that's in 921002 or whatever, right? And that's how you're able to outperform your competition. So you're doing that with direct mail, you're doing bandit signs, you're doing PPL. Tell me a little bit about Facebook. That is one of the channels that we're not using. How's Facebook doing for you right now?
Oh man, I love Facebook.
Okay, why?
It's because all right, so here's a great example. I was able to generate a lead for 81 cents on the dollar, like 81 cents.
Okay.
I can't think of any other place to be able to generate a lead that low. But Facebook can be tricky, man. And if you don't really know how the accounts should be set up or how the accounts need to be set up, then you could really drive yourself in the wrong direction really easily and really quickly. So Facebook can be tricky. It's just a matter of understanding their platform and how to really just use that platform, man. But like with PPC, last time I tried to do PPC on my own, it was like 12 grand and 3 leads came in. So it was super bad, dude. But with Facebook, man, like, because I set up accounts so often, I just have better returns 100% of the time. So, like, for example, one of my buddies, Charles, I set up his account and he was balling, I don't want to say balling on a budget, but we're kind of testing the waters to see what we could do with like a low cost, pretty much like a low budget per day for each campaign. So we set the daily budget for each campaign for $2. And when I set up my campaigns, I set up 4 different campaign types. So really, it was looking at like $8 a day. Well, within a month and a half, he ended up getting like 29 leads out of $8 a day.
Okay.
And so it's so funny to see these things because it's like you can do it very cost effective and still get results from it, which is what I like about it so much because it's going to have a high return. And the first time I ran leads on it, first time I set up my Facebook account or my Facebook ads, I spent maybe $500, got a lead out of it, closed on it, and made $11,000 in the assignment. So it just had a high return.
And you're talking about $8 a lead there. So you could just, I mean, even if they convert like SMS or cold call leads, you're still profitable at $8 a lead. So, man, most of the people that I talk to are getting $100, $200, $300 cost per lead on Facebook. What are you doing differently that helps you stand out to get those $8 leads?
Oh, it depends, man. It's hard to answer because it all overall is going to depend on how their account really is set up. So within your campaigns, you're going to have your assets and your ads. And it comes down to, one, how the campaign is really set up, but also like what you're doing as far as the targeted audience in your ad sets, because that is really important. And so one of them that I think a lot of people miss is the advanced placements. So this is really important because a lot of people that I've talked to in the past, a lot of times they get a lot of spam leads on their Facebook accounts when they run ads. And the reason for it is because of advanced placements. So when you're going into your ad sets or you're creating your ad sets, advanced placements is manually, automatically going to be turned on by Facebook. You want to take that off. Take it off, make it manual, and unselect audience network. Unselect audience network. Take that off, and you'll see a dramatic change in your leads almost right away, man. You're going to have a lot less spam.
Interesting. And I know we just dealt with that with Google as well with advanced placements because we launched a campaign, Performance Max campaign. And Google, if we're talking too high level with marketing, I'm going to break it down what we're talking about, right? So Google, you've got Google and YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google. And you can run video ads the same way you can run video ads on Facebook, right? And so within Google, you've got your search campaigns, which means that somebody is typing in that they need to sell their house fast or they want to sell their house fast, whatever keywords you're bidding on, you can show up. Those are typically bottom of the funnel leads. So you've got top of the funnel leads, which are usually SMS cold call leads, right? They weren't even thinking about selling. You just put something in front of them and all they have to do is respond to a text, right? Then you've got some targeted interest leads, which are down the funnel. Maybe they are in the market for selling. They inherit a property. You're targeting a specific audience. And then you've got your search leads who are about as low as bottom of the funnel as you can get. Unless you have a physical office somewhere that says like we buy houses and a giant sign and someone shows up to your office to say I want an offer on my house, right? That would probably be the most motivated lead you can get. But search is the next best thing. And so other than search, you've got demand gen and you've got Performance Max. And we just dealt with this a few times while our Performance Max campaigns are learning, is Google will try to find who we're looking for and they'll find the wrong audience. And then they'll just start putting all of our ads in front of them. So for example, we want to buy houses. And for some reason, Google would find people that only spoke Spanish that want to buy a house, right? And they just put all of our ads in front of them to where we got 20 leads in a row that were just Spanish speakers wanting to buy a house. We had to tell them, hey, we're not selling you a house. We're buying houses. And if you don't have a house to sell, we can't help you. right? So that happens if you don't know the ins and outs and you don't know how to actually use your advanced placement. So I'm really glad that you brought up. And what other types of ads are you doing? Are you doing video? Are you doing pictures? Like what other things are you doing with Facebook that helps you get that low cost per lead?
Sweet, man. So right now I like to keep things super simple. So it's just, I'm not doing any video ads right now. It's just like regular pictures and text, like nothing crazy. But I will tell you this, man, I did see a big difference. I basically like test this. I've got my primary text, which are just like regular general text targeting like whoever. And these are typically your texts that you see all the time on Facebook, like, hey, we buy houses cash, so on and so forth, and go into the spiel of buying house cash and what that process looks like. But then I created a whole different category of primary text that really use NEPQ. And there was a massive difference between those leads and the leads from the primary, like just the generic primary text. And it wasn't even just necessarily like a big difference in the quality, but I had more responses from the NEPQ campaigns than I did from the regular campaigns that I would typically run. So I wanted to do this to see like how big of a difference it would actually make. And it does make a difference. And so now when I do like NEPQ, I'll have it set up to where the heading is very NEPQ-like, the primary text is very NEPQ-like, and then I also set up 3 different custom audiences utilizing different questions that stem from NEPQ. And so when I get onto these calls, I'm having so much better quality conversations. I've got a lot less kickback. I've got a lot less people saying, oh, I never filled that out. It's just a lot more quality calls. And it also helps me filter through the people that are like legitimate versus the people that are not legitimate, like bots. So that also helped out there too. But yeah, man,
This is gold. So you might be the first person that I've talked to that is using NEPQ in the real estate industry in their marketing. So what does that look like? What are you writing in your copy that is NEPQ style, and how is it grabbing people's attention?
Man, I've got 5 different primary texts. And the very intro for almost all 5 of them are pretty similar, but the rest of the body is like where it really differs. But the intro for all of them is basically saying along the lines of like, hey, you've probably seen these signs all over the place saying we buy houses cash, and they're probably making your neighborhood ugly or whatever. Like there's like that ending part is a little bit different on each one of them. And then it follows up by saying, yeah, we see them too, and we hate them too. And then it goes into the text. So I start right off the bat with having something that's like relatable.
Okay.
And it just, yeah, man, it's weird. It's really weird. Like Jeremy's a wizard, dude. It makes no sense. Mm-hmm. But there's a huge difference between those or the responses I'm getting from those and the responses I'm getting from these like generic text that I was using previously. And even the photos, I changed the photos up too. So the photos are a lot more engaging. Yeah, they're a little bit more engaging. So they're not like super generic to where it's like, hey, we buy houses and you got a picture of like this ugly, distressed home. It's actually like pictures of families that are kind of like in a, I guess they just look upset, they look down, whatever it is, because I'm able to use those pictures and also relate to those pictures in the primary text as well. And so it's more tied to having emotional connections than anything else. And it's just a big difference, dude. It's weird.
That's interesting. Yeah. And that's how marketing should be, because our industry is 10 to 20 years behind with marketing in general, right? Like if you go to any marketing convention and you start telling people you do direct mail, they're gonna be like, what? You're a dinosaur, right? And so we really do lack good competition. And I mentioned that on one of the last podcasts in the marketing space, but doing that makes sense where you get that emotional tie of the seller and you can tie that in with your text. They're going to relate to that much more than we buy houses cash, right? They've seen that every day for the last 10 years. Yep. Nobody's changed anything in a decade. Nobody's changed their marketing text. It's we buy houses, right? That's it. So, man, good stuff. I appreciate you sharing some of the Facebook tools that you're using. I'd love to connect with you after this as well to talk about Facebook and maybe some of the stuff that we're doing with Google and YouTube. So tell me a little bit about your direct-to-agent business, because you said you do direct-to-wholesaler, direct-to-seller, and direct-to-agent. Direct-to-agent's a tough nut to crack because it's a relationship business. Yeah. It's a referral business. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. So I think you hit the nail on the head on that one, dude. Like direct-to-agent is really tough. for the most part, because one, a lot of these agents are not savvy with the investment side of real estate to begin with. Two, if they are, they're not really open to working with investors for whatever reason. And three, if you come across an agent who is savvy and is open to working with investors, there's a good probability that they themselves are an investor as well. So it's like, how can you find an agent who is competent and also willing to work with you, right? That's the tricky part. It's like finding the needle in the haystack. So what I like to do, man, is create a lot of leverage. And I love talking to agents about this, because when I throw out the idea of going into a joint venture with them, if I were to possibly assign a deal over to another partner of mine, they're like, what the hell is that? And so now I have the ability, this is how I create leverage with agents. Because if I'm able, at the end of the day, if I'm able to help their seller by selling that property, but also put more money in their pocket at the end of the day, other than just their 3 or 6% if they're an intermediary agent, they're going to come back and do more business with me. And the more that I'm able to do with them and pour into them, eventually I can kind of sway them to going into the dark side and coming into the wholesaling industry. And so what I like to do is have that conversation with them. If they're like, for example, I'll reach out to them and basically just ask them if they have like any sellers that have a property that just needs a little bit of tender love and care. And 9 times out of 10, they say no. Like, okay, well, is that kind of like a one-off deal for you? Or, does that ever come across your table? Like, how does that look? So I start prying into really kind of the leads that they have coming in. And so occasionally they'll have like 1 or 2 every so often. And so from there, like if they don't have a whole lot going on, I'll ask them if they're opposed to working with an investor. And if they tell me no, then that's when I start diving into going into potential joint ventures, because I break down a hypothetical deal and essentially what that would look like. And when I'm able to do that and let them know, like, hey, if we're to assign this over to another party of ours or another partner of ours, would you be opposed to going to a joint venture? And they're like, well, what is that? And so that's when I break down what a JV looks like. And the way I structure my JVs for agents is a flat fee of $5,500 or 20% of the total assignment. So when I break those numbers down, and right now our average assignment is $37,000. So when I break that down and explain to an agent, and they're like, you're telling me I can put that additional amount of money in my pocket on top of the commissions I'm making? Like, yeah, that's a no-brainer, right? So this, I guess, ideology stems from Alex Ramosi. This is who kind of, I guess, made this like light bulb go off. He's a big, he preaches on offers. When you make an offer, man, you want to make something that just like you'd be stupid to say no. And it's like you have the opportunity to make an additional, at minimum, $5,500 in this deal. Why would you say no to that? Why would you say no to it? And so when we do deals like that with agents, man, that's how I build a lot of like repeat business with agents. And that's how I'm able to build a lot of rapport and really good relationships with them. And that's how I'm able to just pour into them. And so the more I'm able to pour into them, the more we end up doing inevitably. And one of the things that I do, man, I'm a big believer in being a go-giver. And so every Tuesdays and Thursdays, I teach classes for free for anybody to join on how to get into wholesaling, what wholesaling is. And I break it down very detailed. It's not like some surface level crap. It's like very detailed educational stuff. And when I have agents join these classes, especially my deal analysis and underwriting class, and I teach them how to properly comp a property, it is a night and day difference, dude. Like these agents will reach out to me like, I never thought that's how you would actually comp a property. It's like, yes, this is how you don't look at properties that are 2 miles away. That is not a comp. Like that's not a comp. But yeah, that's what they're taught, Like I did the traditional side of real estate at one point in time, and it's the same thing that I was taught. So I know they go out for a mile. It's like, dude, you know how many different subdivisions you're targeting when you do that? Yeah. So it's like the more I'm able to educate them, the more I'm able to pour into them, the stronger that relationship gets overall. So that's kind of how, I guess, the approach that I take when it comes to like direct to agent.
And so you do a Tuesday and Thursday class. Are those in person, or you said you do them via Zoom? How do you do
Skype. So I was trying to I started off with Google, and then the class got too big. So Google maxed out my class number, so that went away.
How many people can you let in a Google Classroom?
We were at like 70 and some change.
Wow. Yeah, so you've got a lot of agents coming to these, and they're all in Dallas-Fort Worth?
Vast majority of them, yeah.
Are you running ads to get that many people, or are you just calling?
Just calling.
You're doing that, or your team's doing that?
It's automated. So we've got a campaign going, like a little drip campaign that pretty much reaches out to every single agent here in DFW. And that's pretty much like how we're doing our outreach for agents. And every agent that's responsive, I pretty much just respond back and have conversations with them and get them on the phone call, man.
And say, hey, we do a class on Tuesday and Thursday. I'll teach you how to get off-market deals. I'll teach you how to comp the properties. Just bring them to me and we'll close them together.
Pretty much,
that's
yeah.
Basically,
yeah.
Man, that's so good, because I think that the biggest thing that people struggle with when they're trying to go direct to agent is they're just like, give me leads. And the agents are like, fuck you, right? So like they don't want to give you their leads. They get like, the average agent gets like 10 leads a month, and they close like one of those if they're good, right? Yep. One deal a month for an agent's like a good top producing agent, right? And so they're not going to give you their leads. Yeah. Like they're going to milk every single lead. Those are their babies. And so getting an agent to send you an off-market deal isn't easy. But I like what you've built is a little community where you're like, hey, I'm just teaching you classes. I'm giving you value. I'm teaching you how to go find off-market properties. And then from there, they're going to bring you deals organically. How many deals a month would you say that you're getting from those real estate agents?
Ooh, that's a good one, man. We actually just had to terminate one today, unfortunately. That's tough, dude. I would say I've got a good solid eight VIP agents that I work very closely with that are at least bringing, like Stephanie, this chick is killing it, dude. I don't know how she does it. She's a top producer though, but she's bringing me at least maybe 7 deals a week. Like it's nuts, dude. So Stephanie is crushing it. Brandon's doing pretty good as well. I would say he brings me at least a good 3 to 5 a week. So for just them two alone, like them two alone and doing business with those two would be able to create like stability and consistency in this business just from them. But I've got those are deals.
Those are like leads that they're bringing you. How many would you say you're closing on average from your agent direct business?
Ooh, that's a really good one too. Probably, maybe not half. I'd say probably about 40% of those. Anywhere from 35 to like 40% of them.
That they're bringing?
Yeah, that they bring in.
And you've got one agent that brings you 16 leads a month?
She brings in a lot, dude. Like I would say 2 deals a day is what she's bringing me, realistically.
Okay,
yeah.
That's like 60 leads. So, and if you're closing 40% of those, you would be at. So you guys are closing like 30, 20 leads, 20 deals a month from agents.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the average deal size on this?
Ooh, it depends, man. It really depends on the area too. And the tricky part about when it comes to direct to agent is you have to have a big enough spread on it between where you get it under contract at and what it's currently listed for. So if the property is listed at $300,000 and you bring it to an investor at $290,000, you're going to look like a jackass because it's like, dude, you're giving me like, what is this? This is garbage.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's the tricky part when you're doing this. But typically what we like to do, our good rule of thumb is at least like a good split of about $40,000 in difference between where the property is currently listed at versus where we want to get it at. Because if we can get it at about $40,000 of a difference, we can at least market it out $15,000 higher than what we have. So that's the trick part to doing on-market deals. And that's kind of what you got to be careful of, because at the end of the day, you have to provide enough value for your end investor to where, one, the number makes sense, but two, you're also saving them the time to where they don't have to go and do the negotiations with the seller and bring it all the way down to where you've got it at. So that's the trick part between working with direct agents and doing on-market deals. When it's off-market, it's a whole different story. It's pretty much the same thing as working with like direct to seller or direct to wholesaler. It's the same concept.
Okay. And what does your team look like now?
We've got full acquisitions, dispo, HR, TC. So between all of us, there's 13 people.
4 acquisitions and 1 dispo?
No, we've got pretty much, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 acquisitions. 1, 2, 4 acquisitions, 4 dispos. Yeah.
And so what are your acquisitions guys mostly doing? Did you break that up between inbound and outbound, or like inbound and then direct to agent, direct to wholesaler? Or do they all do a mix?
Same thing. So the same thing that basically I'm telling you that like they do pretty much like everything that I'm telling you now is the exact same thing that they're doing. Like we teach our team how to do this because at the end of the day, they're commission based only and we want to make sure that they're able to eat. So it's like if we don't train them properly and if we only train them to target one thing at a time, we're essentially setting them up for failure. And so if we can teach them how to target all 3 of these different lead sources, they're going to have more opportunities and more potential deals coming in through the door. And that's going to help them in the long term and also help them build their business, their pipeline of other wholesalers that they work with and other agents that they work with as well. But if we just teach them how to focus only on doing one thing at a time, it can essentially shoot us in the foot in the long run, because we have this person coming in, they're not doing deals, they're not getting anything under contract, their morale goes down, and it just builds up this like negative connotation around like what we have going on. So we pour as much as we can into like our guys and our team here to make sure that we actually help them really set themselves up for success later on down the road. Because, and I think this is a big kind of issue that a lot of wholesalers, a lot of firms kind of run into, is like when you have a team of acquisition guys, you want to teach them how to essentially build their own business. Because if they don't understand how to build their own business, it's going to be really difficult for them to be able to create consistency in their business. Yeah, you can provide them all the leads, as many leads as you possibly can, for sure. But at the end of the day, how long would that last for? I'm a big believer in really teaching everybody here on the acquisition side, like, hey, this is your book of business. I want to teach you how to build your business. Just kind of like a broker with an agent. It's the same concept and the same kind of principles apply to it. And so that's kind of what we have going on here, is we just really pour as much as we can to our acquisitions and our dispositions team and teach them how to build like their actual solid book of business. So here, one of our KPIs that we measure is VIP wholesalers. We aim for 10 VIP wholesalers at a time. So at all times, we want to have 10 VIPs that we can reach out to and see, one, what kind of value can we add to them? And two, do they have anything that they're struggling to move? And if they do, can we help them move the property potentially? But it's hard to do that if you're not teaching them how to actively pursue each of these lead sources. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so what would the metrics be? The thing that I've struggled with this, because I've built out an agent direct department, and then I ended up shutting it down because I've noticed it's heavily dependent on the actual person that is getting in front and touching the agents. And then the KPIs to track can get a little bit confusing, because like, do you want to track conversations? What do you want to track? Yeah. So I can't imagine mixing, having inbound leads coming in and having outbound touches. What are their daily KPIs for an acquisitions manager that comes and jumps on your team? How many inbound calls, how many inbound leads are they supposed to take versus outbound? What do those look like?
Sweet. So one of the big inbound, or not inbound, but one of the big KPIs that we have for inbound leads is the time the lead comes in to the time it takes to call it. That's a big KPI that we track, because we want to make sure, one, every lead that's coming in, we're getting a hold of like as soon as possible. Because if you don't call a lead within, I think it's like the first 2 minutes, the likelihood of getting that lead on the phone like drops significantly. So the speed to lead, ironically, speed to lead is really important, because time kills deals. So that's one of the metrics that we definitely track for sure. So if they have 20 leads come in, we want to make sure that they're calling every single lead that comes in for the day. If they're not, there's a problem. If they're falling behind, there's a problem. What is the issue? What's going on? Why are they falling behind? Are they overworked? Or are they overwhelmed with what they got? Like, what's the problem? So we'll sit down and have like a serious conversation with them to figure that out. But that is one KPI that we do track heavily is the speed to call, for sure. And another one is really like follow-ups, man. So like making sure that you're actively calling your follow-ups, because this all comes down to having a really good solid CRM.
What do you guys use?
We're using, I was going to say RE Simply. It's not RE Simply. We're using Simple Send.
Simple Send?
Yeah, it's kind of like a variation of Go High Level. That's pretty much like the same thing as Go High Level.
So it's like it's a white labeled software from Go High Level?
Pretty much. So there's a guy named Tyler that designed it to be more specific and built out for wholesaling. So he's the one that like really kind of built it out, particularly for wholesaling, but it's the same layout. It's like kind of the same design. It's got a lot of the same, it's the exact same thing. It's just more tailored to wholesaling.
Okay, cool. And so you guys are able to track, I know within Go High Level, you can track just about everything. Mm-hmm. So one of the metrics that you track is their speed to lead. What are the other metrics that you track to make sure that they're hitting, enough real estate agents, enough wholesalers, but also getting to all of their inbound leads?
So another one is the agent campaign. The agent campaign is pretty, I would say the agent campaign is the toughest one to track, because you're going to have hundreds of leads pouring in throughout the day. So this is going to be the hardest one to keep a hold of. But every now and then, like for example, this comes down to really prospect time blocking. So being organized, not just with your CRM, but also with your processes. So setting some time aside to literally just sit there and focus on responding to these agents and clearing out your inbox is going to be key and essential, because if you don't and you fall behind, it's easy to have 500 to 600 agent messages just stack up within like 2 days. Like it's super easy to do. So you really do got to stay on top of it. So we have our AMs or our acquisitions managers really overlooking everybody's inbox or the agent campaigns that are coming in and the conversations that they're having. And we basically just not micromanage, but kind of micromanage. Like we have our managers really kind of keep an eye on that and make sure everybody's staying on top of their shit. And that's essentially
You said your managers stay on top of that?
We have our managers stay on top of like our acquisitions guys to stay on top of like their leads coming in to make sure they're not falling behind and they're not potentially.
And is that so you've got 4 acquisitions managers, 4 dispo. And one of the things I always like to talk to, like wholesale companies that are doing over $100K a month, what is their structure, right? Because some people just have 2 acquisitions, no sales manager. So when you say the managers, who are the managers? And like, are they sales managers? Is it a dispo manager? Do you have one of each department? What does your director level look like?
So you've got, when it comes to the managers, you've got like your actual acquisition managers, and below them, that's where you got your actual team. So these are going to be your acquisition agents. So you've got your acquisition managers managing the acquisition agents. This is a really good one. So the way we structure everything that we have here, we are big believers in EOS and implementing the accountability organization chart that Gino Wickman teaches in Traction. So when you look at the structure of what we have here, that's pretty much the exact format that we use. Is the accountability chart. So of course you're going to have like the CEO, the COO, you got all your executive teams. Under the executive teams, they kind of branch out to different things. So for example, you've got your acquisitions director, acquisitions agents, acquisitions. You've got your disposition director, disposition manager, dispositions. And then of course you're going to have HR. You're going to have within HR, you've also got the TC as well. We have them tied pretty closely together. And that's pretty much what that I guess kind of looks like, man. Like it's really nothing too crazy.
And you guys have your own your HR in-house at the level that you guys are at now? Mm-hmm. When did you decide to take that leap? I know like HR, some companies wait till they get much bigger, like 50 employees. Why did you guys decide to take on HR so quickly?
Really, it all comes down to culture. So HR really embraces and makes sure that the culture stays the same. The culture basically doesn't become in this negative work environment. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody understands the vision and line for the company. Everybody understands the vision statement and the core values. So HR really comes into play when you want to keep a really good, solid culture within the business organization. And at the end of the day, like your culture is either going to make or break you. And if you have a shitty culture, nobody's going to want to work with you. Nobody's going to want to work in that environment. But if you're able to have somebody in play or in a position to where they can overlook it and make sure like it's in good tracks or on the tracks and you're putting the right people in the right seats, that's how you create longevity. And that's how you create like partnerships with the people that you have coming into your company. And that's why they stick for so long. One is because you want to make sure that the culture is a really good fit for everybody, for sure, or everybody's a good fit for the culture, but you're really putting the right people in the right seats. So when it comes to like hiring and firing, I don't deal with that. That's like HR deals with that. And not only that, but it's kind of like two roles essentially. So he's in charge of like the HR aspect of the business, but also the operational aspect of the business as well for like the CRM and all the like tech. So he manages pretty much both of those aspects because they kind of correlate in a sense. But for the most part, when it comes to like the hiring, the firing, setting up the ads on like Indeed or LinkedIn or anything like that for like job postings, that's totally like all him. I have nothing to do with it. The rest of the guys have nothing to do with it. It's just that's one of the roles that he's assigned to, one of the roles that he takes care of.
And what revenue level did you guys decide to bring on an HR rep? It's interesting. You don't hear a lot of wholesalers have HR in-house, right? It's not super common. When did you guys decide to do that? Was it a $50K a month, $100K a month? Was it recently? When did you guys decide to make that commitment?
Not recently. It's been pretty much in play for about 3 years now.
Okay.
But it wasn't necessarily waiting to like $100K a month. Pretty much when we were able to build a consistent flow of deals and a consistent flow of revenue of at least 25, that's when we were able to kind of bring him in. because we know at the end of the day, we were able to cover all of the overhead. And we also, this is really important too, is managing everybody's like expectations. So it's like, hey, you know, like right off the bat, you're not going to get this massive salary. There's just no way. So this is kind of where we're at. This is the direction that we're going. And basically just we're completely transparent, completely upfront, and laid out the entire game plan. And it's like, look, you can ride this boat with us and your salary can increase over time. Or if this isn't for you, that's fine. That's totally okay. Like we will eventually find somebody, and in the meantime, we'll take care of it ourselves. But once we got set up for about that 25, 30K a month consistently, that's when we were able to do a little bit more with our operations.
And so then you guys hired, and HR was one of your first hires at that point, once you got to 25 to 30K.
Yeah, because like in this business, man, like trying to do these things all yourself is fucking exhausting. And when you're trying to wear too many hats, it just makes it very difficult to do. And so if you have the ability to delegate those tasks to other people that are really good at those tasks, and they're really good with like integration or implementation, if you could delegate those tasks and just focus on the vision at hand and focus on actually the growth and the stability and just really feedback and improving the company while somebody else handles it, that's key, man. I learned that like super later on or early on, because I've been doing this for 9 years. When I first got into it, trying to do all this shit by myself was exhausting. It wasn't just exhausting, but it was stressful. And I was having more deals fall through than anything because I couldn't keep up with everything that was going on. So having a team to really kind of like back you up and putting and it all comes down to acquisitions talent and putting the right people in the right seats. That's what it takes to really have everybody on the same boat and rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, 100%. You're 100% right. I love everything that you're talking about, man. It's a lot of good stuff. So you've been doing this for 9 years. If somebody's starting, right, they're about to start getting into wholesaling, what advice would you give them from your 9 years of experience?
Definitely stay consistent with what you're doing, but also understand why you're doing it. I think it's really important for every wholesaler, whether you're new, experienced, or you're just getting into it, or even if you've been doing this for years and you haven't really set up an ultimate vision for your company or a vision statement or even core values. I think those three things are really essential to your business. Because at the end of the day, if you treat this as a hobby, you're going to get the results of a hobby. But if you come in here and you treat it as an actual business and you run with it and you tackle those three things at first, you're going to be able to weather the storms when they come. And I think that's the biggest challenge a lot of people have is one, they're not really mentally prepared because you get all these gurus online that are telling them that they can close deals in like 30 days, which isn't, a lie. It's true if you have the right tools and the right resources, but the likelihood of you having those tools and resources when you just start off is very unlikely. So for example, like my mentees, when I'm talking to them, one of the first lessons I teach or we go over is mindset mentality, because I want you to come in with the right expectations. You're probably not going to get a deal for 4 to 6 months. And I'm super confident we can make it happen well before then. But the reason I set it up for 4 to 6 months, man, is because I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I would much rather like have this super low expectation of like, hey, it's going to take you 6 months. And then 2 months later, they're already closing the first 2-3 deals.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think with all the ads you see, you can do wholesaling with no money. You can do wholesaling and get your first deal within 30 days. And then another thing that they talk about a lot, like I saw this guru the other day post something like, you could have $20,000 a month from working an additional 2 hours a day. And it's like, okay, $20,000 a month. Is it possible to do? Yeah, definitely. But getting to $20,000 a month in revenue and getting to $20,000 a month in profit are two different things. Right? Getting to $20,000 a month in profit is getting to $60,000 a month typically in revenue in an average wholesaling business. And no one wants to talk about that. Everyone, you see these videos on Instagram where like, how much money did you make last month? $100,000. How much money did you make last month? $140,000. Guys, we're talking about gross revenue, right? If someone's doing $100,000, they're probably taking home $30,000 to $40,000 a month. Right. I've seen some exceptions where people are taking home up to 60 grand. They stay really lean and they do that for a couple of months and then they get burned out and they start bringing on other people. Right. So understand that when you're looking to get into wholesaling and you're going to eat shit for a while. A lot of times it took me 8 months to get my first deal, and I worked every single day, just sitting there like doing test blasting and calling leads because I didn't know what to say to them. I didn't know what list I was supposed to be pulling. I just was winging it, right? And like, did I learn eventually how to do it? Yes. Am I successful now at it? Yes. Years later, after tons and tons of education, training, and experience, I got better at it. But I think the biggest thing that I really hate to see online is this whole, you can make money with $0 and an extra 2 hours a day. Yeah. I promise you, like, there are people that have done that, but that is not the average person's going to come in and make $20,000, $30,000 a month with an extra 2 hours a day, especially not profit. So I love that you brought that up and that you're real with it. I can't stand when people are oh yeah, you can do it with a couple of hours, because man, you're going to compete against people like me and Darion who are working full time, and we have entire companies, and we will beat you if you're working 2 hours a day. I promise.
100%, dude. And I agree 100%, man. And that's like the biggest thing. I'm a part of like a really big community from like a real big, I guess, influencer, investor. And even the students in that community, man, that I talk to on a daily basis, they're just like running in circles because, they're listening to the advice that they're teaching. And it's like, well, first off, why are you trying to wholesale creative deals? Don't wholesale creative deals. Like you're setting yourself for failure. Do not do it. And it's just, it's such a headache, man, because like you just have all these guys that are, looking to make a buck on selling the damn course, that they're not even being transparent. They're not being upfront. And then you have these people, these students that buy the damn courses.
And then they get in and they're like, this is, I'm not learning how to do anything. Yeah. And a lot of those guys have made, they've gotten to where they get to 2 deals a month for like 6 months. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to go just teach how to do it full time. Dude, the market changes. Yep. The market is completely different now than it was last year. Okay. And way different than the year before that, during 2022. And if you're not getting advice from people that are in the industry right now, you're going to get left behind. It's too late, right? So awesome stuff, man. Where can people find out more about you if they want to learn? Maybe they want to come attend your stuff. They're in Dallas, Fort Worth. Where can people learn more?
Sweet, man. So Facebook is definitely like the biggest one for sure. And then my YouTube channel is just Darion Blake. And so like all the sessions that I've done up till now, I've recorded every single one of them. Unfortunately, YouTube has kicked off a few of my videos for cursing. So I'm trying to get better at that. But if you go to my YouTube channel, man, there's a plethora of content on there where I do like really deep dives. And so I think the shortest video I've got is like maybe 45 minutes, but they usually average to about 2 hours. So it's pretty good stuff. Like if somebody were just starting off, I would always recommend them to start just binge watching these videos, because it's going to help them understand the process of what wholesaling actually is and how to do it ethically and how the whole thing really kind of works out. And I break down even how to use like my contracts, my agreements, my joint venture agreements as well. So like, I'm giving you the tools that you need to do this. And so if somebody were to come in, just start, I would direct them straight to that, man, because they don't have to buy a course and it's on there for free.
Love it, man. I'm going to drop the link to your YouTube channel down here. This has been great, man. I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully you guys can go show him some love. Go follow him or go subscribe on YouTube and make it to his weekly classes Tuesdays and Thursdays. So great meeting you, man. Thanks for coming on. This is Zeroed In Podcast signing off.